One word to describe my 9/11 experience?
Yes.
Shocking. It was very shocking. So that day, I'd actually just had back surgery, and I was on base, I was sleeping in that day because I didn't have anything to do, and I was recovering from back surgery. And all of a sudden, my wife walks in, and she just turns on the TV and says, "Hey, something's happening." And right when the TV turned on, the second plane hit the World Trade Center. And instantly, I thought it was a movie, and I was like, "Why are they showing this movie right now?" Of at whatever 8, 9 in the morning, whatever it was, West Coast time, and so it slams into the building or whatever, and then I hear about the other attack, and I can see the other tower, and it just instantly clicked what's going on. This is terrorist attack. And instantly, I thought back to Tet in 1968, when my father was in the battle there, where they just surprise attacked the entire American military establishment in South Vietnam, and it was like the same thing. But, what can we do? All of a sudden, the alarms go on, because I lived on base at the time. So the alarms go off, and all of a sudden, I hear alarm Delta, alarm Delta. I had never heard that before. Delta meant we're in combat, and we're being attacked. Whereas Charlie's where, you're getting ready or whatever, but Delta it's already happened. So it became very serious really quick. And I'm freaking out, because I'm not even supposed to be at work or anything like that, right? So then I call the doctor who had cleared me, or who had done my back surgery, and I lied, and I said, "Oh, I'm this big important guy of special forces." And, I appealed to her like patriotism, saying, "Oh, you got to clear me. I got to go. I want to be in the first wave, blah, blah, blah." And so I get her to sign off, and then I call my work and I say, "Hey, my unit," and I say, "Hey," they're like, "Look, we're busy. All right, we got to get ready to deploy people." They already knew they were going to deploy people. And, I said, "Well, they just cleared me, so I can go, I could deploy if you need me to," because I had certain schools and things that I thought they might deploy me. And, they're like, "No, you got to be cleared by an Air Force doctor." So I call the Air Force, and I make an appointment, and they actually got me in that day. I mean, I don't know why. 9/11, everything was jumping off, but they managed to get me in because I said it was to clear me for deployment. So they, everything worked so good right after 9/11. Everything just clicked really well. So they got me in, and the guy I can hear the doctor's making me do all this stuff. He's like, "Touch your toes, do this, do that," and I could barely do any of it because I still had stitches that hadn't healed and this and that, and so I'm trying to go through the motions. So I can hear the doctor talking to the airman or nurse or whatever on the other side of the wall through the vent, and they're like, "Well, should we clear the guy?" And the nurse is acting, and the doctor says, "He's the first guy in here." He's like, "I've seen 20 guys come in here today trying to get off deployment. He's the first one trying to get on, so the hell with it, let him go." So they cleared me. So I went to my unit and I said, "Hey, look, I can go, or I'm ready to ship out. I've been medically cleared." And so they actually took me. And by September 13th, I was deploying. So we went through this processing line where we got all this gear, and we had no idea where we're going. And then I'm getting all this desert stuff, right? So it was pretty clear we're going somewhere in the Middle East. Well, we're going through the processing line, and I asked the guy, and ended up becoming one of my best friends, but at the time we didn't know each other. And I asked him, "Hey, do you know where we're going?" And he flat out told me. He goes, "Oman." And I was like, "Oh, okay. So we're going to go to Oman." So we go through the processing, and this was still a big deal. I mean, the media was all over the place. So I go through the deployment line, and we all know now we're going to go to Oman. And as we get in this bus and we drive down there, all of us wearing these new desert clothes, and like I didn't have it buttoned up like the regulations state where it's supposed to be all secure and all that, because we just got the stuff and ran out to the bus, and with all of our chem gear and bulletproof vests and all this crap. And we get on this bus, and right when we pull up to where we're in processing at to get on the airplane, there's all this media here, like a huge line of media, and there's actually a picture of me with like this dumb look on my face, like, and they put it on the front page of the Spokesman Review, because I was in, or whatever the name of the paper is, but I was stationed at Fairchild at the time in Eastern Washington State. So, and I get off the bus, and then the base commander, I think he's a colonel, was there, just shook my hand, and I got my jacket all unbuttoned, and I'm like, sorry, sir, and he's totally oblivious to it, and we go in, and we go through the process, and, you know, we get told where we're going, Oman, sure enough, and then, we had to load all of our gear on the plane, so we're loading it, it was on a KC-135, and we're throwing the gear into the plane, and I could barely do it, and like the group of people I was deploying with knew I was injured. They knew I had back surgery, so they were trying to help me out. So I didn't tear a stitch or anything. And we got in the plane, and we take off, and then all of a sudden the flight engineer is running around looking at the bottom of the airplane, or looking at something, I don't know what. It was obviously a problem. So then the plane has to turn around, and it turns around, lands, and then we have to take all the gear off and throw it onto another aircraft, another KC-135. So we're transporting all this stuff, and I could feel the stitch break right in my back. So the stitch breaks. I could feel the stitch break. I can feel like the blood dripping down my leg, back on my back. It's just really bad. But you know, all's well in well, I guess. We got in the plane and took off, and we flew straight to England. And then when we landed at Milton Hall, I think it was. Yeah, Milton Hall. In England, and when we landed, we hit the ground so hard, like the pilot was like the worst pilot ever. It's like whack right on the ground. And I remember all the flight crew had 9mm, which was unusual. We never had seen that before. But as it turned out, they were worried about them being terrorists within our own ranks, trying to take over aircraft and do another 9/11, I guess. I mean, it was a crazy, crazy time. It was one of those things. I mean, it was amazing to be in the military at the time. I mean, for me, it was like, this is the Super Bowl. This is, I mean, sounds bad, but that's what I joined to serve my country, and we didn't really have any kind of big threat, it seemed like. And then, boom, all of a sudden, we're in the midst of a world war, and it was my war to fight, you know. So I was very honored that I was in at the time, and I was able to take part in it. But it was a very shocking event, and you know, the thousands of people who died, and I can speak for us in the military, we were so angry. We were so incredibly angry at what had happened to us, and we wanted revenge. And, you know, let's be honest, we weren't too concerned about who was against. I mean, obviously we wanted Osama bin Laden, but it was all militant Islam, which we wanted revenge against, you know. And this is something that had been going on for a long time. Osama bin Laden is not a new name to me. When I was stationed in Saudi Arabia in 1999, we used to live in a place called Friendly Forces Housing, which was called, you know, and there was a big stamp on it, or it was built by Bin Laden Industries, which is the sole construction company in Saudi Arabia, I believe, is Bin Laden. It's owned by his brother or whatever. But the point is, I mean, it was a joke to us that the walls of this thing were filled with C4, you know, because this guy was such a terrorist. But be that as it may, you know, it wasn't any kind of a new thing for us to believe that, you know, Bin Laden had attacked us like this. So, you know, we landed in England, and we stayed there for a couple weeks trying to get diplomatic clearance, or dip clearance, and then we finally got it, and then we went to Oman. And in Oman, it was just, it was just horrible. I mean, we were sleeping outside. I was a refueler at the time, so we were refueling lots of aircraft, driving 3 times, for 3 days straight, driving a refueling truck, going to fill the truck, fill the aircraft, fill the truck, and then we go fall asleep outside or in this big toolbox thing, Connex thing that we had. You know, it was a rough time, but we were all dedicated, and we were all, even if something it seems mundane, but the refueling thing. But one day, the fuel hoses actually were installed incorrectly, and our beacon and all the equipment that runs the airfield was about to shut down, and there was aircraft coming in to land, and we were like the only place they could have landed at that time. So it was a big deal that we got it repaired and fixed. You know, I think we got it fixed within like 15 minutes of the aircraft coming in. You know, little things like that. So it was a really big deal, and we worked a lot with the Royal Air Force, who happened to be there for an exercise, and they worked with us. So it was a very remarkable time, but it was, God, it was scary though. I mean, watching those people jump out of the building, and it was horrible. I couldn't believe it had happened. I couldn't believe the balls on these people to do this to us, and we wanted payback, and that's what we did. And the whole U.S. military was focused on that goal. And, you know, our politicians may let us down, but our military never does.
Please subscribe to our channel, PH News. Our motto is fact-based media.
Look for Patrick Hostis's latest ebook for sale on Amazon.com for only $2.99. Only Our Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and Their War on American Law Enforcement.